Ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome to today's pod episode. Today's pod episode guest is someone, I think if I had to give a very simple introduction, I would say Shubhika Sharma, founder of Papa Don't Preach. But Shubhika, you are so much more than that. I think that you are resilient. I think that you're ambitious. I think that you are talented. I do think that you are beautiful, but women get called beautiful I would rather focus on the inner qualities right now. I think that you are very strategic and smart with your business and lots of great things that I think we have to unpack today. So welcome to the pod.
Very, very happy to be here, Aanam. And I think I've watched you. We probably started our journey together. So all the adjectives that you have so kindly listed for me, I would actually attribute all of them to you. I've seen your journey and I don't think that any of these adjectives don't fit you and more.
Thank you. You're very, 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 very kind. We met, like you said, we started our journeys together. How many years ago? I've lost track. 2012? 13?
2012.
Yeah, one of the times after you showed at Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the things I need to stop doing is having conversation with guests before we start recording because I feel like so much of my memory has been jogged and I want to ask those questions all over again.
Let's blame that on Bombay traffic.
Let's.
Yeah.
But I feel like you are someone who does clothes, you do accessories, you do bags, shoes, jewelry. But you know what my favorite thing about your brand is? And this is going to sound very content creator-ish of me to say, but it's that you are one of those brands that does the product, but also has created this magnificent brand presence online where the personality of Shubhika Sharma has transcended from the person that you are to the way people perceive your brand. And kudos to, of course, you and your content team to be able to really have that translated with almost, I would say, zero dilution. What would you credit to that? What's your secret sauce?
I think that the best part about us starting when we did was Instagram was just launching, right? And as I was sharing earlier, I got rejected by Lakme Fashion Week like twice, thrice. Everywhere that I was applying, be it like Vogue Fashion Fund, I was not making the cut, right? And then there was this thing on my phone where I could just say what I wanted to say in the language that I wanted to speak in and put my work out there. And it felt like I was taking the power back to my story, for my product. And I think that for me was just so exciting because you said that Shubika's personality kind of morphed into Papa Don't Preach. But I think that I also fed off on the brand's personalities. For the longest time, until 2 years ago, I didn't have a content team. I was managing Instagram and building all of that on my own.
No way.
Yeah. And that is when I also started my personal Instagram page because I was like, I need to understand who I am outside of this brand, right? So we reached a point where it started off with me kind of taking the power back because I believe I'm a storyteller and I love to kind of, for me, even products feel alive. For me, a bag looks like a face to me. So even the way we name our products, they all have like there's a Mr. Who and there is a Mrs. OMG, these are all the product names. So for me, that world is very real. I used it. I've grown up as a girl who kind of like to escape into different worlds that I created, and Papa Don't Preach just managed to morph into a world that allowed me to do that on a daily basis. I had to be all prim and proper at home and like be a good girl. But when I would enter my office, and it would just be me and my world, and I could dictate the rules. I could speak the language that I wanted to speak. I could personify all my products. And I think in doing that, people kind of just got really excited to connect to like what was the story behind the brand, the person, the product. And then they reached a point where if I had clients coming in, they would be like, and I'd be like, okay, so why don't you do this, wear this with this? And they'd be like, oh, but that's not Papa Don't Preach. Okay. And that's when I realized that, okay, so now the brand has kind of become an identity of its own. It's no longer me. I'm not as important as it is now. And then there was somebody who told me that, when I see your products hanging on the rack, they just feel alive. So for me, it was actually everything that I wanted my brand to be. It had a personality. it definitely had a lot of mood swings because, as you're correctly saying, today I wanted to make lehengas, tomorrow I wanted to make bags, I wanted to do shoes. We were just doing everything. There was this beautiful chaos, which is very, very similar to my personality. I'm Cancerian, I'm extremely moody. And that's how the brand was. But when I started sensing that it had grown up to become its own person, is when I handed over the reins to somebody else and I trained them to be. And my content team now is phenomenal. And I'm glad that we haven't diluted, even in this era where you have to produce like 10 reels a week. And I mean, you know the drill.
How long ago did you found the brand, exactly speaking?
2010 is when I launched it as a high streetwear label. I was, I think, 22. I think we were one of the first independent brands in India to launch as a high streetwear label as an e-commerce website, which was JIT, which is just in time inventory or like made to measure. And I launched it with fashion flash mobs inspired from like Gossip Girl.
I remember that era.
Yeah. And we did it in like 3 nightclubs and it was just about girls having fun. I don't know if you witnessed any of the flash mobs, but at that time it was Sherry Shroff, Isha Talwar, Nidhi Sunil, who are all legends now in what they do. But at that time, we were just girls, just so excited to like build something together. And the spirit was so much more collaborative then than it is now. So I was very lucky that I got to start my brand at that time with the people that I did. Because I always like to say that I didn't go to fashion school, not in India. I did go to London. But it was a very short course. It was like a 7-month course. So you know what really happens in such courses. I don't think something as technical as fashion, and I very specifically want to say it's very, very technical. It has so much math. I tried to run away from it, but it just ended up being all about math. Cannot be learned in 7 months. You need the 4 years. If you're lucky, do a master's after that. So I did not have a network of fashion friends. I've studied journalism. I worked in DNA newspaper for some time while I was studying. And then I came back and I was very silly, I would say, to not do an internship in any of the fashion houses. So I actually learned everything on the job. I had to build my own network. And by that, I mean, and I also went to a school in New Bombay where there weren't the people who are in the industry right now. So I credit Instagram a lot for any community, any network that I have managed to build today is only and only because of Instagram and only because of how I've been able to put my brand out there and how my probably journalism helped me, probably just growing up and like reading books, like devouring books, all my childhood helped me.
So 2021, you did 11 years of the content on your own then.
Yeah.
And did you feel the loss of control or, withdrawal symptoms when you gave the reins to somebody else to take care of content then?
I still am very involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard because the language that the brand was speaking for like over a decade was my own.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the captions, all the campaign press notes, collection notes, all the stories, all the engagement, all the responses to DMs, all the responses to the comments were me. So there was a loss of control, but I'm a person that if I bring somebody in, then I'm pretty hands off. But I think that there is still a lot of dependency on me to kind of like the bigger campaigns or just the tonality of how we want to like deal with things. It's still very much there. And I think that it helps me to still be on the page in my DMs because I get to hear so much from the people who are writing to us, to read the comments, to respond and engage with the comments also. It actually keeps me very much like tightly woven in with the fabric of the world that I'm kind of creating in, and I think that's so important to not get cut off of that. So there is a sense of loss of control, but I think as you age, you just want to do more things. We have a podcast now. We want to ideally have our own magazine soon. So I think if you find the right people and it takes time, it will only help you grow to let go of control. to trust more people, to bring in fresh ideas, bring a fresh perspective, let them make their mistakes. I learned so much. Like, I'm 36 today. I started when I was like 21, 22. I now work with largely Gen Zs. I'm learning so much stuff that I don't think if I was controlling it, my brand would have been so relevant if I were to do it. Also, I get tired now of social media. So I guess it's a good thing. Everything happens at the right time.
But what I'm taking away from everything you're telling me is that even though product is what kicked off your brand, the fact of the matter is that you've almost led it in the zone of creating this online personality and almost media platformish. Because if you're heading in the direction of a magazine where you already have a podcast, and like I said, your social media presence is very visible. And I mean very visible in a sense, not that it's just about the numbers of the engagement. I just mean when you go through the feed, you can tell what this brand is about. And I think that that's something that's not very common. There's a lot of brands out there that hit the 500,000 and 1 million and more mark. But there's a very small percentage in that you have a takeaway value of for, oh, this brand stands for this, right? And I feel like the zone you're heading into, it sounds very globally directional when it comes to the way, fashion and maybe even some couture houses work internationally. While you have early mover advantage from the product design space, which is a given, do you feel like if you started your social media journey from the brand side, would you have had the same trajectory? Like, do you feel like if you started social media for your brand now,
I don't think so.
do you think that other brands can do it now? Do you feel, I'm asking you this because I get asked a lot of times, I want to be a creator. Do you think it's too cluttered? And my repeated response is, you know what? Everyone else is taken. If you can be you, then there's room for everybody.
So I think that is a very tough advice to give to somebody who's starting new, because I don't know who I am, right? Like when I'm starting off. When I was starting my brand, did I know this is who I was? This is what my brand would stand for. This is what my community would be like. These are the causes I would, get behind. I didn't know that. And I think the reason why I enjoy my work as much as I do is because it keeps teaching me and kind of shining this really, really uncomfortable spotlight on who I am all the time. Like, it's always questioning me, the decisions that we need to make on an everyday basis with so much happening in the world, who we're aligning with, what we are speaking about, what messaging are we putting out there. If I was starting today and somebody told me, and I think that that's great advice for people like you and me who kind of now know who we are and we know that is the answer, right? Like I tell people, like, there's so many young people who come to me and they're like, I want to start a brand, but I just don't know how to. Or worse is that I want to do something on my own, but I don't know what it is.
Oof.
All I know is I want to do something on my own.
That's a little scary.
But it is the reality right now, because they are faced with so much competition in today's, like the young ones now. When I was starting off, my competition was probably my close friends, the 10 other designers that I knew, or my parents' friends and their kids, or friends of friends and stuff like that. Probably 50, 100 people, right? And then, okay, if you are applying for Fashion Week, then you're competing with, say, like 200 more people. It was just a known number. Today, if I ask my creative team to come up with ideas, the young ones, anything that they come up with, you can just go on Pinterest and be like, oh, somebody else did it 20 years ago. Today, my competition can be somebody sitting in Germany, can be somebody, it's already done, somebody's done it, da da da. At this time, for somebody to really say, this is who I am, is really scary. So for me, the advice that I give people, and I think Nike just nailed it when they did, it is just do it. I still now at 36 just like to go around in circles. But why? But why can't I? But if only I could. But when I just call out my own bullshit, I know that I just have to do it. You'll do it, you'll know. You fail again, and you just learn to fail better, so you know the next thing to do, right? And that's how you find out who you are. That is why I work as hard as I do. It's because it's helping me in my own personal spiritual journey of understanding who the hell I am minus all the bullshit. That is the advice I would give the young ones, is that it is very important to be you. But who the you is will only come out when you are absolutely comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, get bloody uncomfortable. You will not know. There is so much resistance to, like in my team also, if you give an extra task to a person whose KRA or KPI kind of on paper says they do this, you give them an extra task from another team, there are very few people who will be able to take it up as a challenge and do it. There are many who will fall sick the next day, who will just get stressed of, will I be able to do it or not? Because there is a fear of being uncomfortable, being out of your comfort zone. But people like you and me, when we were starting off, we didn't know any better. I think we got lucky like that. We just did it. We just put it up there. And okay, this is working, this isn't working, this is shit. I'm not saying that rejection didn't feel bad. At that age, when I got rejected from all these fashion weeks and all that, it crushed me, right? But it also helped me figure out that, okay, I need to then probably do something else. Like I started as an e-commerce brand, as a high streetwear label. When I finally got selected by Lakme Fashion Week, they said, we can only let you apply as an accessory designer because we have space for that. So I said, okay, I pivoted and I said, okay, I'll apply as an accessory designer, but I'll put my clothes, shoes on it. I mean, you can't stop me from doing that. So I got 3 seasons in, I got my foot in the door, but I called myself an accessory designer for those 3 seasons. But I was okay with that. It was uncomfortable. I wanted to establish myself as a clothing designer, as an e-commerce, just in time inventory, and like a bespoke, made to measure kind of a high streetwear label. But here I was doing embroidered outfits and embroidered accessories and shoes and figuring the hell out. My team was literally me and just my Master G and 5 karigars. There was no team. There was no design team. My team has grown on, my team is actually just 2 years old technically. It was because we did not know any other way but to just do it and to just be okay with being uncomfortable. And that would be my message to anybody who's listening till now.
Be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Your team is only about 2 years old now, which is really commendable, because tell me a little bit about how big your team is. And I definitely want to, for those of you who don't know, I love the fact that your labels have your Master Gs, your Karigars, everyone's names on them. I know people have mixed opinions on that on social media. Personally, I'm a fan because I feel like you truly credit where the execution level of things comes into. But tell us a little bit about your team, how big it is, and how you kind of manage that, because that is a very big part of business that not enough people talk about.
Yeah. I feel like I'm only managing people. I don't know when I design. I don't know when I do anything else. I'm lucky I'm on this podcast right now, not managing someone.
They say the biggest part of being a founder is putting out fires, no? So,
yeah. And if you're lucky, your team will help you put them out. But I mean, there is always the other side also where you're putting out fires. I think you're just trying to manage expectations more than people, but you're just managing your expectations with your team's expectations of you. But to begin with, I'm very lucky, I think, when I meet so many more fashion entrepreneurs internationally or even people in beauty. You don't really get to work with the team that actually creates, say, my karigars. You'll have to probably outsource the labor when you are working in London, when you're creating a brand in the US. You don't have access to karigars and artisans. I feel extremely lucky that I can go into my office every single day and sit next to them and work with them. And I don't know if you know, but they say in carpet weaving, they actually make it a point in every carpet to do 5-6 stitches wrong so that nazar na lage. They don't want to make a perfect design. And because I get to work with karigars, it is collaborative in a way that, of course, I have a design in mind, but it changes from person to person, karigar to karigar. master to master. Their own little flaws come in, their own tweaks come in. The way they see a color green is very different from how I see a color green. So, in that sense, to answer your question, because I have digressed, I feel lucky that I get to work with my team of Karigars, which is over 150 now. This growth also has happened in the last year or so. Before that, we had about 60 Karigars, and I was outsourcing a lot of work as well. With that, now we have a core team of about 75 and 80 of us that oversee production, dispatch, courier, sales. Now we have a separate flagship store. Until 2 years ago, my store, my studio, my production were all in one place in Lower Parel, but now it's all separate. So separate teams for all of that. Social team has grown to a really large team. There's PR, there's marketing. We handle everything internally. We don't work with any agencies. No comment on agencies, but
That comment is enough of a comment.
yeah. So yeah, that is the team now. And now it was just me plus one in my garment design team until 2 years ago. And then there was somebody in shoes and jewelry and stuff like that. Now I'm building a design team because we want to enter the US market. We want to also launch a pret line for Indian wear. As you said, we want to do a podcast, we want to do a magazine. So the team is growing. I'm lucky to be able to build it with very few people who were there with me right at the beginning. Not too many are left now. The old guard is left of natural progression in their careers. But it isn't easy. And I think that one lesson that a very good friend of mine taught me was that when you are building a business, one of the first few people you need to hire is a good HR. I don't like to call it HR because that's literally calling humans as resources, which is a very industrial revolution hangover. So I call Nidhi, I must call out her name, my chief people officer, because I think it is not managing people as resources, but as I said, expectation management. And there's a lot of that because we are working hard towards building what an Indian company culture looks like. I was telling my team recently that, we had a office by night where I gave because everybody was kind of new. So I want to talk about my origin story, what our mission is, what our mission is, where we're going now, what our ethos are. So it's like, I am a journalism student. I studied fashion very briefly. Everything else I've learned on the job because I've not worked with anybody else. So a lot of my learning, all of my learning when it comes to business, of course, it comes from watching people. My family has, like my dad, my aunt, my sister were all entrepreneurial like that. So I've learned by watching them, but largely I would attribute it to my reading. I think that in just 300 rupees, a person is giving you their entire lives. And that to me is priceless. 300 is now, of course, must be more now. But just consuming that has taught me so much. But then I understood now that I have started managing such a wonderful team and such a challenging team also. They challenge me, I challenge them back. But it is challenging nonetheless. All that I learned about company cultures came from books like Netflix or Pixar. But they were talking about a company culture in a very different country. The culture here inherently, which is very innate to being Indian, is very, very different. And it also translates into companies where, say, if somebody's sick, and I see this in my team, it's beautiful. We have a really nice cafeteria where we sit and have lunch together. It goes on for hours. But if somebody's sick, if somebody's mom is sick, somebody else has got tiffin from home for them, If somebody is feeling really low or things like that, they invite people to come stay over with me. You can't travel that far, come and stay with me. These are things that you will not really see happening in American companies, It's so beautiful about being Indian. But there is no book that I can pick up and read on what an Indian company culture really looks like. So that is the challenge that I've given myself and my CPO, that is what we want to get right. and understand. And it's going to be a process because the team is fairly new. There are challenges, but my long-term goal is that I will be able to write on what Indian company culture looks like.
I'm looking forward to that. I do feel like Indian culture in general and at large is so different. I was in California recently, and I met with a few beauty brands that I work with a lot, and I had the opportunity to go into one of their offices and really like get the tour. And I had the best time. And I remember when I was leaving, I should call them out, Benefit Cosmetics. I said to them while leaving, I said I had so many meetings with brands while I was there, but I thought they were the warmest, nicest people ever, and very unlike the typical American work culture that I was otherwise experiencing through my 5-week-long work trip. And I remember saying this to them and just, complimenting them on the fact that it almost felt like the little bit desi culture because they were so warm and nice and how we love to feed people. And, it was that. And I had the best day with them. So I look forward to you shining light on that. Drum rolls, please. So it's time for our next segment, Associate This. A fast-paced word association game where my guests get no more than 10 seconds to respond. So get ready, get set, associate. Success.
Team.
Resilience.
Me.
I agree. Couture.
Sabyasachi.
Oh, I love that. Hard work.
Lifeline.
New York.
Land of opportunities.
Fashion Week.
A bit stale.
Preach.
Uplifting.
I love that. And girl boss.
You.
I was hoping you would say like me as in you.
Me and you.
Thank you so much for coming on the pod, sharing your story. I love the direction you've taken your brand in. I remember meeting you over a decade ago at some cafe discussing business at Pali, and I'm very, very happy for how far the brand has come. And I'm looking forward even more to the direction you're headed in, because to me, it sounds like a powerhouse and I can't wait to see it just multiply and grow and grow.
Thank you, Aanam. I wish you the same. It's exciting for us to be at this precipice of the whole world shifting and changing, and we get to restart again. So I think that's exciting.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Woodhouse Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram now has 2 Omaha Metro locations to better serve you. Visit our newest location in Bellevue, off Highway 75 and Chandler Road, or in Blair off Highway 30. Take advantage of $10,000 off MSRP on all 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab trucks during the Make This the Summer sales event. With approved credit, tax, title, license extra, $299 doc fee due at signing when financed with Chrysler Capital. Excludes tradesmen and TRX models. Offer expires 8/31/2023. See dealer for details.